it brings up the concept to me of term limits. And what people should know
Mm,
seriously, Senator Ted Cruz, God bless him,
yeah.
co-sponsored a bill, and I forget the other senator, in January of 2023, so this year, to pass term limits for Congress. And I want to read to everyone. I know, there he goes reading again. I want to
No,
read you what
don't
he
read it.
happened to say as to why term limits are necessary. And I
Okay.
want your reaction to this. He said, term limits are critical to fixing what's wrong with Washington, D.C. The founding fathers envisioned a government of citizen legislators who would serve for a few years and return home, not a government run by a small group of special interest and lifelong, permanently entrenched politicians who prey upon the brokenness of Washington to govern in a manner that is totally unaccountable to the American people. That's about as good and powerful and true as it gets. So,
Yep.
where are you on term limits?
I am a very strong supporter of term limits. I have been for many years. I even advocated for them during my congressional campaign.
Okay.
I signed the pledge. There was a term limits pledge. Some organizations, COS, term limits. Um, I'll sign it because, people will argue. What I heard argued from people was, well, we need some consistency and some longevity so that we can manipulate people into giving us more money, or we need consistency so that things flow better or whatever. And I'm going,
Yeah, we need
um
someone who knows where all the bodies are buried,
well,
who's been
also,
around long enough.
here's the deal. Our founding fathers were really, really smart guys. Uh, Term limits are basically, or excuse me, longevity and stability is actually written in where it belongs, right? So you have senators
Ooh,
who sit for
very
6
good.
years.
Very
Exactly.
good. That's
Senators,
excellent.
yes, and then the House was intended specifically to be more representative, to be fast moving, and to have high turnover so that it is actually, in fact, representative of the people that they purport to represent. And so, we don't need kings and queens in Washington. We need Congress people. And so, big, big, big supporter of term limits.
As am I. First of all, I think there's two things. The first thing is that you follow the example set by the founding fathers and the politicians of old who were citizen legislators. And that's really the key. Right? The key
Yes.
is to go back into your community. There's that word again. We're not organizing, however, but to go back into your community and become a fat part of that fabric, as opposed to become part of the permanent entrenched political class that sort of feeds off the carcass in all
Yeah.
of this. So, folks, we're coming out really strong. Just to make a very blatant statement, of the people, Robert Chernin, Erica Reddit, ASIC, we support term limits for the health of the country.
That's right.
That is I don't know what the answers are to solve all the ills or the problems in the country, but I know that term limits is a part of that solution. Has
I
to
think
be.
something that you said was so important there, Robert, which was, um oh gosh, yeah, I got so excited. I got to take notes next time because you said, they did not intend for it to be a bunch of politicians, entrenched
No, they didn't.
politicians who are then, like you said, knowing where all the bodies are and things like that. Um George Washington, our first elected president as the United States of America, set the example by stepping down after 2 terms.
Correct.
He was a statesman before he was a politician or anything else. And I think that sort of wisdom and discernment that was demonstrated is so important. And when we talk about, you were talking in your last, we were talking in our last segment about wokeism being the new religion and that it's basically the state religion. Well, now what we have in that religion with many of these politicians who have been there for years and years and years, They're like the elders of the church, right? They're the ones who are established. They're the ones who have power. They are helping dictate and direct where those additional monies and things are going from the additional arms of the Democratic Party. I mean, it is the corruption that is wrong with Washington. The fact that they can stay there, manipulate, do insider trading, and create barriers to entry for middle class candidates and other folks to come in. I mean, you know, ultimately, this just further entrenches their control over the American people. And it's why I'm a big supporter of convention of states. I know we've had some, yeah, that is a contentious argument among those of us involved in ASIC. But
That is a contentious argument.
but
I know you are passionate about that, and you know that I have
I
serious
just
doubts.
I don't believe that there is a way to get the federal government to dismantle the power it has. And I think that control rests in the states. And I don't see any other way to take back power from the federal government when it is at this point, um, when all of the three-letter agencies are so entrenched in our lives, when the American people say that they want change but then refuse to cut any benefits or entitlements or budgets, when we have these folks who are fundraising all of this money off of the backs of pharmaceutical companies and oil companies and
Don't forget big education.
big education, all this stuff. The federal government, I don't trust to check the federal government. And so I really believe the change has to come from the states. So if anybody can come up with a better solution, I'm happy to hear it.
I do not disagree. Look, we talked about it last show. The larger the federal government becomes, the less freedom we have as Americans, and that's the core of American exceptionalism.
Yeah.
I am skeptical about the Convention of States, because once you open Pandora's box, you may end up with a worse document. I mean, don't forget, going back to the Constitutional Congress was empowered to, quote unquote, reform the Articles of Confederation. They didn't. They exceeded their mandate. They didn't reform it. They threw it out. And then they wrote the Constitution, which obviously is our guiding, operating document.